Well, good morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, man. Here we are, mailbag time. And
Mailbag.
holy, did we ever get a lot of comments and questions this last week for a dark period in baseball.
It's been great. It's
Our
been
our community has continued to engage, which is fantastic. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Walk Off. I'm Scott Belford, joined as always by Adam Mack. All sorts of questions and comments to get to here. I know you had a few as well, correct, on your
yeah,
end of things here?
yeah. Got quite a few as well.
Okay, awesome.
Let's start with one that you got on Twitter. So this is from
Yes.
Jerbot Jays fan. He says, "Hey, I just saw at MLB Nerds on here rank Danny Jansen as the 20th best catcher in baseball. I honestly thought, even after the rough start to last year, he's better than half the league's starting catchers. What stats are they using to determine this, and do you agree with them?"
Okay, so this is kind of interesting because I actually saw what's his Jerbot. I love
Jerbot,
these Twitter handles. Yeah,
yeah.
Jerbot Jays fan. I actually saw the tweet that he's talking about, and it's actually a projection for 2022. But he sums it up beautifully. What stats are they using? So they're probably not naming what stats they're using, and I have found that this MLB Nerds Twitter handle, I disagree with a lot of their takes sometimes.
Okay.
It's one of those ones where you can tell they're trying to get engagement, which is fine. It's fun. And, lists tend to be biased and lists tend to be all based on what stats people value the most and what metrics they're using. But this is an interesting little game to play, I guess. Where does Danny Jansen rank? So I did do a bunch of research here on his metrics and where
Okay.
he lands. So probably the most important stats for a catcher are defensive metrics like BLKR, which is blocking runs, added metric, pitch framing, runners throwing out, stealing. These should all be included. FWAR, which is wins above replacement adjusted per stadium and so on and so forth, teams and stuff like that.
Right.
So um, Danny's stats from 2021, like one thing to keep in mind with Jansen is he only played 70 games. Okay, so
Right.
he didn't get the sort of season in that we were all hoping for. He had injury problems. He really struggled off the top. So let's start with his blocking runs added. So just to give an idea, Buster Posey led the entire major leagues with blocking runs, and it was 0.8. So he was averaging almost a full run saved a game
Wow.
from the way he blocked pitches, which for Posey was huge because he was catching Kevin Gausman, who has one of the deadliest splitters in all of baseball. It dives hard away and it can get into the dirt, and you got to kind of be on your toes and ready to get your knees down and block the ball. Gausman being a J now, this is something that Danny has even brought up that is one of his main focuses in 2021's offseason is going to be blocking balls, getting down in there, training, figuring out
Jansen's
how to
gonna
do this.
catch every one of Gossman's starts, right?
100%, I think that's the case. What's really interesting while we're talking this, so Danny Jansen did rank 20 on this MLB Nerds Twitter site. Alejandro Kirk ranked 7th, and Adley Rushman ranked 5th, who is currently considered one of the number one prospects in all of baseball for Baltimore, has never played a major league game. We've talked about how much work and experience goes into becoming a all-around defensive and offensive catcher
Mm-hmm.
that is above league average. It takes time, right?
Yes.
So I even think, even though Rushman's a huge stud and is going to be one of the best catchers in baseball come 2023, 2024, I still think that ranking him 5th in 2022 is insane. So I disagree with this list in a few different ways, but with a nasty splitter with Gausman, Jansen is going to need to pull a Posey and really bring that metric up in his whole catching universe, right? Now,
Yeah.
defensively, go ahead here, bud.
No, I just wanted to acknowledge the fact, and you brought it up too, that Danny Jansen played 69, 70 games last year.
Yeah.
So I think that also factors in when, you know, a speculation based account like MLB Nerds or whatever, someone like us, right, who just briefly does I don't want to say briefly even, who scans the stat sheet at the end of the year in the rankings and sees that Danny Jansen only played 70 games. I feel like that's got to be maybe something that they weighed in, like, without knowing the whole story of why he only played 70 games.
Of course.
Right? You see that he played 70 games. You think, okay, he's not an everyday catcher. That's got to bump him down.
You
a bit,
have
right?
to be such a baseball nerd to be super knowledgeable on all 60 catchers.
Yes, thank you. That's what I'm getting
baseball. At. So definitely there are some peripherals around Danny Jansen's numbers that it's very likely these guys didn't take into account. Now, he did rank 19th in blocked balls in 2021 out of MLB catchers. So they have him at 20. So for that particular stat, they're in the realm. Now, pitch framing, Danny Jansen has always been slightly above average. He's in the 58th percentile this last year. Not elite, but definitely the stat of a number one catcher, right? So his framing is far above average when we're talking fastballs outside and inside. He struggles a little bit with his framing when it's the high fastball or down below. But this is something that he gets better at every single year. I do feel like I'm defending Danny right now, but I like Jansen. I think that he's come a long way, and I actually am starting to, if you were to just take Scott from 1 year ago and Adam from 1 year ago, we're both not huge supporters of Danny Jansen, but I've seen great progress in 2021, and I think that he fits in well with this team. I don't know.
I was very happy with the progress. I mean, I said it a couple weeks ago, and I'm going to stick to it. I think 2022 is going to be a breakout season for Danny offensively. I think as far as where do I consider him in the catcher rankings across the MLB, catcher is such a bad position. I think in my mind, like, without just looking at the numbers and whatever, just like my gut reaction is that there's like 5 really good catchers, and then there's just kind of everyone else.
It's like number one defenseman in hockey. You know, like, there just isn't enough for every team.
Exactly.
So, like,
right?
I think you're nailing it. I think there's 5 elite catchers and then everybody else. And you wish to be on that side of slightly above average. Like Danny Jansen, to go back to stats here, he caught 24% of base stealers in 2021, which is just below league average. He had a wins above replacement of 1.3, which is right around average for catcher. An OPS plus of 106, so slightly above average. 41 hits and 11 home runs. And again, this is in 70 games. And he struggled hugely offensively in April last year. Like, literally was a black hole on
like
that
0
team.
for 60 to start the year or something ridiculous.
Like, I think it took him May to be hitting over 100.
Yeah.
It's crazy. So ranking Danny Jansen 20th in 2021, I'm all for. I'm fine with that. As a projection, I think that, again, they're just not as connected with the Jays and know the peripherals and stuff, because I think Danny Jansen is going to be a top 15 catcher in the league, which is where you would hope he would be, right? An above average catcher.
You know what's maddening about the catcher position, though, is when you go to, like, dive into the offensive stats for these catchers, you can sort by home runs, you can sort by at-bats, you can sort by any of those, but anything that is an average based, like on-base percentage, batting average, slugging percentage, any of those stats, anybody who doesn't qualify for the list, which is always like 3.1 plate appearances per team game played, right? So over 162 games, they have to have had like 480 plate appearances for the season. And because everybody plays part-time, almost nobody gets that many plate appearances. So when you go to sort, like, okay, well, how does everybody's batting average stack up? Like, where's Danny Jansen rank on batting average amongst catchers? And you go to any site, whether it's ESPN, MLB.com, Fangraphs, you name it. You go to catchers and you sort by batting average. It only lists 2 catchers.
Yeah.
You get Salvador Perez and you get JT Realmuto. You know? Nobody else has enough at-bats or plate appearances to qualify for that list, so they just don't show it, and that drives me nuts every time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I get it
because catching has become a position that is a shared position. Most teams are running two guys out there fairly regularly, right? They've got their number one guy who's getting 90 to 100 games played, and then they have their backup who's in there 60 games.
And I just want to say to that 3.1 plate appearances per team game played. I understand the reason they do that for most positions, right? Because when you go to sort the list, you want to see the guys who are playing every day. You want to see where Vladdy is and Juan Soto and Fernando Tatis, where all those guys are on the list. Mm-hmm. And if you don't have a minimum plate appearances, then, one guy gets called up for a week. He's on fire and he's batting 500, and all of a sudden he's, the number one guy in batting average in the MLB. And it's like, okay, well, clearly not. He just got called up and has been hot, right? So that's why they have that requirement. But for catchers, can we at least show the top 30 or something?
Yes, agreed. It is frustrating when you're trying to look up stats for catchers, and offensively it's just difficult to find anything. You need to go guy by guy.
Yeah, I could just sort it by all of them and then manually make a list of okay, here's where Danny's batting average is, and here's all the guys. Okay, there's 13 guys with a better batting average or what, but it's just let me do sort and see more than two people. Which
is another thing to keep in mind when you see stuff at MLB Nerds on Twitter, right? Is how much work did they really put into this list? We don't know. They didn't really discuss the metrics they're using, the stats they're using, how deeply they dug into this stuff, right? So
I'm surprised.
If they're just going by a list of catchers and throwing them in there, I don't know.
No, you mentioned Alejandro Kirk was ranked 7th?
Yeah.
That's shocking to me.
Me too. Which I'd be all for it. I mean, listen, if this projection works out and Alejandro Kirk is the number 7 catcher in all of baseball next year, heck yeah, that's huge for the Toronto Blue Jays. That's great. Don't forget he's 23.
Yeah, and slow as dirt. Anyways, let's move on. We got more questions to get to here.
Yes. We got
all right, so the next one comes from Marcus.
That was a fun question, though. I like that.
That was great, Jarbot. Thank you. So this one comes from Marcus on YouTube, who says, "Great mailbag, guys. The community here is full of really knowledgeable fans coming up with some really interesting topics, and you guys really fleshed out the questions." He has a question to add, but I just want to acknowledge the fact that, our community is we're super blessed to have such a great baseball community here with the walk-off. So
impressed with everyone's knowledge.
Absolutely. It's really going to help us get through the next 4 to 6 months. So keep these comments and questions and speculations and hot takes coming in. But from Marcus here, he says, I really think we should try and gain some value surplus by having an open competition with the 5th spot, rather than going out and spending $15 million for a 4th/5th starter.
Interesting.
So let's go down the rotation here. We've got the 1 and 2. I don't know, maybe interchangeable in your mind. They're interchangeable in my mind. But we got Gausman and Barrios as our 1 and 2. Either one of those could be our opening day starter.
Yeah.
Kind of a toss-up. 3 and 4, I think, is kind of the same thing between Manoah and Ryu.
I think Ryu will slot into that 3 hole only to break up the right-handed pitchers.
Fair enough.
The lefty in there. Yeah.
Fair enough. Plus, as the veteran, I think you give the edge to Ryu.
Yeah.
If you put Manoah ahead of him, I don't know.
I'm all for putting less pressure on Manoah because he does the same thing. He'll do the same thing this year, I should say, as he did last year, which is push management's hand. He'll force them into a decision, and then come the playoffs, maybe Manoah's the guy. Who knows?
And I think there's something to the fact that Ryu and Manoah seem to have a brother-like relationship, right? An older brother and a younger brother.
Yeah.
Manoah's really taking to him as a mentor, Ryu's really taking to Manoah in a mentorship role. So I think even just the formality from a psychological standpoint of no, Ryu pitches ahead of me because he's the man. He's been here. He's done it for 10 plus years in the MLB. He's the guy I'm looking up to. I want his spot, this sort of stuff, right? And if you if you flip it and you have Ryu ranked on the rotation higher than, or sorry, if you have Manoah ranked higher than Ryu on the
No, some
rotation.
psychology there. Absolutely. I think you're
Something
dead
to it,
on
right?
that. Yeah,
So,
for sure.
and then for the fifth spot, let's brainstorm who we've got who could compete for that fifth spot.
So Marcus's idea is to fill the fifth spot internally.
Right.
Have a bit of a competition within the Jays organization and save the money, maybe put that towards an infielder or an outfielder or a bullpen pitcher.
Right.
That's an interesting idea.
So
Ross Stripling was excellent last year.
Yeah, so we've got some obvious choices for that fifth spot, which would be Stripling, you named it, and
Nate,
a little guy named Nate Pearson, who I think could very well be in competition for that fifth starter spot.
I mean, if they're going to go this route, a dark horse to keep your eyes on. And by the way, his interview is still up on our conversation pull down in our YouTube, and it was a great interview with Zach Logue. He actually led the Blue Jays organization minor leagues in strikeouts last year. He's a guy who has steadily improved over the last couple years, finishing the season at AAA last year. Again, dominated in AA, dominated in his starts in AAA. He's a guy that I think 27 years old he turns this year. Mm-hmm. Has some experience. He's been a professional baseball player since he was 19. So he's been in the Jays system since I think it was 2015 is when he was drafted. So he's been around. Bowden Francis, who is a AAA pitcher that they got for Rowdy Tellez in the deal that brought Richards over. He pitched very well for the Buffalo Bisons. He's another guy, 26 years old. Could maybe take that next step. Personally, how do you feel about an internal solution to this number 5 pitcher? I would like to see them go out and get another left-handed pitcher, at least to compete for that spot.
Okay, interesting. I was going to say I love it. Like I have no interest in going out and signing a pitcher to be our number 5. If we go out and sign or trade for, like if we are looking externally, I don't want to be acquiring a guy to pitch in the 5 spot for us. If we're going out and we're acquiring a guy to pitch 1, 2, or 3 for us, and that means that Alek Manoah is our number 5, absolutely. I'm all on board with that.
So you'd like to push the rotation down, not slot something in at the back end. And that's very fair.
Yeah.
That's very fair.
All right. Do you have anything else to add to that, or should we move on to Drew from our Discord?
On.
Okay. So Drew.
Interesting thought by Marcus, though. We haven't heard a lot of Jays fans be like, you know what? Let's do some internal competition here.
Yeah.
Might not be a bad idea.
Absolutely. So Drew in our Discord says, which by the way, sorry, before we get to that, our Discord is still free and open. So there's a link to it in our show notes down below. Join the Discord, a lot of fun in there. I think we're up around 100 people in the Discord now. So
yeah, it's a fun little community. It's great.
I do have to kind of clean up the channels. We've got kind of channels in our Discord that are kind of all over the place, but I'll have to get that cleaned up this off season. But lots of stuff. Share all your stupid baseball memes, talk about the NHL, whatever you want. It's just a big organized group chat, and it kind of gets chaotic, but it's good place to be. So okay, so Drew in our Discord says, did the Cubs really sign Marcus Stroman for more money than Kevin Gausman? What the F?
That's funny. I mean, I guess yes, they did, right? What was Stroman's deal? 3 years, 71 mil. So I think his average broke down to like 23.5 million a season. And then Gausman, of course, was 5 mil or 5 years, 110 mil, which is 22 million a season. So yeah, Marcus Stroman's making $1.5 million more a year. However, I don't think that's necessarily the right way of looking at those contracts. Okay. 2 extra years is huge, especially considering both Marcus and Kevin Gausman are 30 years old. So Gausman getting those extra 2 years, that's massive. But yes, if you're just going to break it down per year, yeah, Marcus Stroman got paid more than Gausman.
Wild stuff.
I mean, Marcus Stroman is a solid pitcher. Let's be real. Like, he pitched 33 games last year. He had an ERA of 3.02. He had 179 innings pitched, a WAR of 3.6. So, like, he was a top-end starter. Gausman outdid him. He also had 33 starts, 192 innings pitched. He led the NL in durability and innings pitched. 2.81 ERA, 5.4, so 2 extra wins above replacement over Stroman. So the Jays, for going an extra 2 years, did pretty well getting a guy at that kind of caliber for $22 million a season.
Totally. Just while we're at it, we're talking about free agent pitcher signings. Did you see that Justin Verlander's deal with the Astros fell through?
What?
Well, okay.
No.
Maybe fell through is too strong of a word.
Okay.
It's officially not official. So I don't know where it got hung up, but Justin Verlander officially, like as of today and for the rest of the lockout, is a free agent. He is not a Houston Astros pitcher. So does that mean he failed his physical?
That's what I was just going to say. I wonder if this is a health thing.
I mean, he's old as dirt.
38.
I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, who knows? Maybe they just ran out of time and the ink couldn't dry before midnight. But, I mean, officially,
he was an
Justin
earlier
Verlander,
signing, too. Like,
Yeah.
I bet you he was 2 weeks before they went to lockout.
Yeah, right here. 2 weeks before the lockout, it was reported Justin Verlander would be returning to the Astros. However, MLB insider John Hyman tweeted out, the Astros deal was never announced and presumably is not official. And yeah, as of today, it is still not official. He is not a member of the Houston Astros.
Wild.
So, I mean...
Wow. Crazy. I did not hear that.
So is that a...
What a twist in the pitching market. I don't know.
It is interesting because, he probably wanted this security of something and, to stay put in Houston, but... I mean...
Well, maybe you can get him for 1 year now.
Well, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some off-the-record phone calls coming his way for the next few months, right? So it'll be interesting to see. But
very interesting.
Yeah. All right. So this next one comes from Emma on Discord, who you said DM'd you directly, right?
Yes.
Okay. So she says, "Hey guys, I finally watched Friday's episode today, and that was yesterday, Monday." She says, I always watch it almost as soon as you guys release it, but I'm just not feeling baseball right now. And then all the lockout stuff, and I just feel bummed out. Is everyone feeling this way? How are you guys doing?
Yeah. I guess the easy answer, Emma, is yes. Not feeling great. News has slowed down. It has been a weird week where it's just like all of a sudden there was all this excitement at the off season and so much was going on, and now it's just nothing. And on top of it, it feels bleak. I don't know how you're feeling, Adam. I know we're kind of in the same boat where it's just like it's tough to feel optimistic about anything, and even to get excited about spring training when there's no certainty on the horizon that it is going to happen when it should. So yeah, not feeling the greatest.
Yeah, it's I feel like just exhausted because of the way that the whole season went out with such a bang. Like there was just fireworks for that last weekend, right? So
especially
it really,
as us Jays fans, right? Like it mattered right until the last game.
Yeah, last day we were like, are we gonna sign Chris Taylor? Are we gonna sign Chris Bryant? Are we gonna do something here? Do something? And it was
even the season. If you wish to go back, I mean, the Jays won that last game 162, and then us Jays fans just had to sit around and wait to see what happened.
Yeah,
like so it mattered until literally like it was
like I think if you're a Yankees fan, maybe you're not quite as exhausted because November didn't end the same way for a Yankees fan, which is awesome, by the way. But no, I feel like, those like videos of like marathon runners and they're like, they can barely walk by the time they get to the finish line and they just collapse into a pile of bones. That's how I feel. Like when you messaged me this morning and you're like, "Hey, are you good to go for the mailbag this morning?" I was like, "Yeah, uh,
That's
I
how I felt too. I was
guess."
like, oh, I
And I
guess.
look forward to the mailbag. I love
Oh, me
like
too. I
interacting
love
with you about
interacting
baseball and going through
yeah.
these questions and stuff. But like, I am. We're like 6 days into the lockout, and I'm already sick of it. Like,
So, Emma, you're nailing it, and we're all with you.
yes, 100%. I don't think anybody is not feeling a little bummed out or exhausted by the whole situation here.
Yeah.
Scott and I are going to, and I think we've mentioned this on a previous episode, but we'll mention it again.
Yes.
We are going to start doing baseball movie reviews. So that'll keep things interesting, maybe a little bit through the lockout. We're starting with Bull Durham, which is a classic baseball movie. And that'll be, I guess, we'll probably be recording that next week, right, Scott? You got a bunch of...
That's the dream. So I do apologize. I know we were supposed to do this about a week and a half ago. December is always the busiest time for comics. There's always Christmas parties and stuff like that. So I've been on the road a lot, and so we have had to bump a few things. I know we were going to talk to Hagen Danner while we're teasing things that are coming up here. Of course, he was just added to the 40-man roster, transitioned from catcher to pitcher. He's a guy throwing 100 miles an hour that will probably most likely see in the bullpen of this Blue Jays team sometime in 2022. So he was going to sit down with us last week. Adam had some stuff go on with his family that we had to kind of shuffle things around. But he's supposed to talk to us hopefully next week as well. So we've got that coming up. And again, we are going to continue to bug folks, try and get them on the show and do some interviews that way. I know Jamie Campbell of Sportsnet actually got back to us and said that he would be down to chat. So hopefully sometime in the next few weeks we talk to Jamie Campbell. I know that I reached out to Bowden Francis, and he saw it. He didn't respond yet, but he saw it. So we'll see. Maybe there's something there as well. Anyways, we'll
so
carry on here.
Back to these baseball movie reviews. The plan is we are going to start with Bull Durham next week for December's episode, and then we're going to do monthly baseball movie reviews through 2022. And those are going to be Patreon exclusive. So we're going to get our Patreon organized and set up here. I think like $3 a month is what we'll do for that. But yeah, the Bull Durham one will be free for everybody on YouTube. So you guys can kind of get an idea of what we're doing with it. It should just be kind of chaotic and fun and silly. So if you've seen Bull Durham, hopefully you can relate to some of the comments we go over with it. And then I think what Scott and I are going to do is Scott's going to pick 5 baseball movies that he wants to cover. I'm going to pick 5 that I want to cover. And then we're going to leave 2 for the final 2 months of the year up to maybe like a vote or a poll on the Discord or something like that. So if you guys have a specific baseball movie that you're like, oh, you guys aren't doing Field of Dreams, we need to see whatever, right? So there'll be some engagement there on the Discord. So anyways,
you guys
that's
are
something
reviewing Sandlot 2?
Exactly, right? So anyways, we're going to do that. We'll do one movie a month through the calendar year of 2022. And then, if you guys are enjoying it and we're enjoying it, then we'll continue it into the year beyond. And if we run out of baseball movies, we'll just start doing hockey movies or other sports, right? I know you guys would love to hear us talk about Air Bud, so... Anyways, that's all kind of stuff that's coming up. So keep an eye out for that Bull Durham movie review later next week. But let's move on here, Scott. A couple more here. So these come in from YouTube. Matt Finley says, with Gausman signed and Ray gone, do the Jays still pursue another pitcher or start with Pearson and go from there? Do you think the Ray money now goes towards an infielder free agent, or do the Jays trade for that piece now? So this kind of ties into Marcus's question, which we kind of addressed the pitching situation already and our thoughts on that.
So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, Adam. Personally, and I'm going to just throw it out there, I think the Jays are still going to sign a starting pitcher. I think they're still going to sign an infielder. I think something might happen in the outfield, and I think the bullpen is still going to be addressed. I think all of these are going to happen, whether it's free agency or trade. We'll see what happens. But where are you at on this?
I don't know. I think there's. I don't know. I don't see starting pitching as being the biggest hole at the moment. I think we do have a hole in the
Isn't
infield.
that a nice feeling?
That's
What a
so good.
switch of
Even
of
as it stands
directions for
right
this team.
now, we probably have the best rotation in the AL East.
I would say so.
Right.
If not the best, we're right there. Like,
I mean, the Rays will still probably have something that. Anyways, fuck the Rays. Excuse my language. No, I would just like to see the Jays be a little more aggressive finding another infielder. And prioritizing that over pitching. But I think they're going to have their ears open in kind of all aspects. I don't think they're, you can aggressively go after an infielder while still taking phone calls about pitching, right? So it's, I don't know. Right now, the Jays have lots of room under the luxury tax. That could change. The tax could go up. The CBA could see the implementation of a more formal salary cap instead with a spending floor and ceiling. There's so many variables now. The nice thing is that no matter what happens, the Jays are going to have room to spend. And
they're currently at $158 million for the year for 2022. If they are prepared to go as high as 180, which is kind of the rumors out there currently, then that does give them about $22 million to play with, which is plenty when it comes to acquisition through trade, right? So let's say you can get a high-end guy like Ketel Marte or Jose Ramirez, who constantly is on the tip of every Blue Jays fan's tongue, right? And then still have money to go out in free agency and maybe pick up a low-end starter or some bullpen pieces. There's lots of things you can do, especially if you're going the trade route.
Do you have any interest in any of the free agent shortstops that are still available?
No. I mean, unless they go out and get Carlos Correa, but I can't see them spending like that when you still need to lock up Bo and Vladdy down the road.
I agree. I think Carlos Correa is going to be a massive contract wherever he goes. And if the Jays were to sign Carlos Correa immediately, and it might already be this no matter where he signs, but it's especially true if the Jays sign Carlos Correa, that now becomes the starting point of conversations with Bo and Vlad.
Yeah.
Right? If he signs with the Yankees for $400 million, you can still talk to Bo for less than that.
Yeah.
If the Jays sign him, I don't know, man.
It means they're choosing him over one of the other two.
That's
guys,
what I mean, right? It does feel like, oh, am I not good enough? You had to go out and get someone else, and so there's. As much as everybody's a professional, there are egos.
If it wins a World
right?
Series in 2022 or 2023, I mean, worth it.
Yeah.
But I can't see them doing it.
How much do you think Bo can get relative to Vladdy?
250 over 10.
250 over 10. Okay.
Vlad's probably 400.
Oof,
I could be wrong. We'll see. I mean, I projected Carlos Correa at 300 over 10, and he's going to get 4. After Seager gets 325, Correa gets 4.
Well, especially if that luxury tax goes up, and that's probably why he didn't sign, is he's hoping the luxury tax goes up or the salary cap or whatever is higher, and all of a sudden the Yankees have some wiggle room to throw some money his way, right?
Yep.
All right. So this one is kind of a similar note here. This is from Neil Mack on YouTube. He says, if Groshans is healthy and training hard right now, I believe he can contribute to the big club in a significant way next year. How are your feelings about Jordan Groshans as a piece of this team?
So one thing about Jordan Groshans that really stood out to me is when he sat down with us last year and chatted, is that his mental acumen is elite. He truly believes in his development and what he is doing. And we watched in July him go from kind of a middling shortstop in double A to all of a sudden elite. He just kind of turned that corner. You started to see him spray the ball all over the field, which was something he was struggling with. He was pull happy. You're seeing him hit a little bit more for power. All of a sudden, he was going 3 for 10, hitting that 300, which you love to see. And then, personally, I think he's going to get the start as the shortstop / third baseman for the Buffalo Bison out of spring training. I don't personally think there's any way Groshans makes this team out of spring training. However, if he does continue to progress the way that he did at the end of 2021, then yeah, I do think that we do see Jordan Groshans in a Blue Jays lineup sometime in 2022. Is he going to be a massive add? Time will tell, right? I don't know if he truly is the third baseman or shortstop of the future. However, he has continued to progress. And again, when we sat down with him, which you can check that out, that was a year ago. Maybe, actually, it was probably 8 months ago. It was in spring training last year when we talked to Jordan.
Yeah.
But mentally, he's a guy that would fit right in with this team.
Yep.
Positive, fun guy, fun vibes, super focused. We'll see where it lands.
He's an interesting case because he is someone whose stock has fallen. He was one of these. I feel like the early days of Jordan Groshans was, he was hyped, maybe not quite on the Bo and Vladdy level, but like whatever the level
Martinez,
is right
though.
under that. Yeah. The way we're talking about Aurelvis Martinez and Gabriel Moreno right now is the way we were talking about Jordan Groshans a couple of years ago.
Only 9 months ago. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really cooled off this year. I mean, he finished with a 291 batting average in Double A, but as he said, slow start, really turned it on in the second half of the year. Probably starts the team Triple A next year. He's only 22 years old.
Yeah, he is still young. He was a high school pick, so which is why he's been in the system. It feels like forever.
Forever, yeah. So I'm always surprised when I look at him and I go, oh yeah, you're just 22. Right, because I do feel like he should be 24 or 25 years old at this point, and like, okay, he should be knocking, ready to go, or else is he like, he's either ready to go or he's a bust at this point. Is where I'm in my head, and then when I see that he's only 22, I have to remind myself,
yeah, there's still a lot of development to go on here.
Most 22-year-olds do not play in the MLB.
The fact he continues to progress does say something.
Yeah,
right. It is encouraging, absolutely, and we'll see what this front office views as him value-wise. Do they view him as a trade chip? Like, do other front offices inquire about Jordan Groshans? Maybe his value for this team is in a trade. We'll need to wait and see. But, yeah, Jordan Groshans is an exciting prospect. He is a guy that, again, like I said, mentally continues to show that he's a baseball player through and through. He's a guy that has continued to make progress. Where he lands in 2022... your guess is as good as mine.
It is funny, though, the way we view prospects, and, like, I'm guilty of this, too. But when we have, like, Kevin Gausman playing third base and, like, only hitting 240 or whatever he's hitting, and just being like, okay, well, let's just bring like, we have this shiny toy down there, like, and clearly there's a hole at the major league level. Like, let's just bring up the prospect. But it doesn't quite work like that, right? Like, I can almost guarantee that whatever production offensively we get, and defensively for that matter, out of Kevin Gausman in the infield this year is going to be better than what we could ever hope for from Jordan Groshans this season.
I would say that too, at least to start the season. Like, I'm kind of, with these prospects, man, I'm kind of in the mindset of what this front office did with Alek Manoah last year, right? Make them perform at such a high level that you don't have a choice. right? Make them force their way onto the team, and I think that's what they'll do with Groshans. I don't think that they're going to give him – I don't think they're just going to hand him the keys to third base, right?
I don't think so either.
Okay.
Let's leave with this last one here. So this comes from Liam D. Responded to our video about should the Jays go for Chris Bryant or Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor's now signed, re-signed with the LA Dodgers, so that kind of has answered that question. But Liam says neither. They need a left-handed hitter, and this will be our last question as we're getting kind of long on the mailbag episode here. But Liam says we need a left-handed hitter. How do you feel about lefty-righty splits?
I agree with him personally. I know we're on a little bit opposite ends of the spectrum on this particular case. I think they do need a left-handed hitter. I would love to see them go out and spend some money and bring in Kyle Schwarber or listen, all these rumors about Freddie Freeman being so supposedly, for those of you who missed it, there was one big free agent who approached the Jays. Now, it just makes sense that it is Freddie Freeman after all of the rumors were circulating, and Carlos Barga, I think it was, on Instagram, who's a family friend, put some rumors out there that Freddie Freeman could go to the Jays, which makes absolutely zero sense. Needing to move Vladdy off of first base, putting him back to third, or just DHing a 22-year-old kid. Freddie would obviously need to be at first base, but Freddie Freeman's big lefty bat in there would be pretty dang sweet on the offense. So, yeah, I think we need a lefty bat. Adam's not as...
I don't know. I've never really bought into the lefty-righty splits. Like, I know it's a thing. I know when you look at performance from, lefties versus righties and all this. I know it's like an actual thing. I just don't know why. Like, as a tiebreaker between two guys, sure. But, like, I don't want to prioritize someone just because they're a lefty.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. If we could get Carlos Correa, or is he a lefty? Is this defeating my point right here?
No,
he's a righty, right?
Correa's a righty.
If we get Carlos Correa, but we're like, oh no, we need a lefty, so we're gonna sign some lefty bum instead. I don't know. I'd rather have a great righty than a pretty good lefty just for the sake of mixing a lefty into the lineup. Like, I don't know. It's a little different for pitchers because your pitchers, if you have a lefty in the mix, faces the entire lineup.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have a lefty batter in there, I feel like it really only affects maybe one bullpen decision a game, right? Where it's like, oh, we're going to bring in this guy instead of that guy because they have a lefty coming up. But even then, because of the must face 3 batters rule, still feels like, why are we even still doing this? Like, we're gonna factor in our decision on which pitcher we bring in because they have one lefty coming up in their batting order. Like, I don't know.
Analytics, buddy. And
I know it's crazy that it's real, but it's just stupid.
This has been baseball's thing since baseball started. Is righty versus righty, lefty versus lefty.
It's crazy that's a thing. It's crazy that the analytics values that.
Prove it, yeah.
It's crazy that it's true, and it's crazy that guys can't just hit the other way when the shift is on. It's crazy that guys don't know how to bunt. Just at the professional level, it's absurd to me that you can be
this for days. Yeah.
Oh man, that you can be a 300 hitter against a right-handed pitcher, but if the ball's coming from the other arm, now you're a 250 hitter. Wrinkles my brain, man. Anyways, you're right. We could talk about this for days. We're at 45 minutes on this mailbag. We better wrap this up.
All right, so it was a bulky mailbag, but thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and for contributing. I know a lot of you submitted questions, commented on YouTube. You can always feel free to do so. We do this every single Tuesday. We release our podcast every single Friday. Of course, this is going to be on both YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts, audio-wise, so Spotify, Apple. We're on all the platforms. Twitter is @WalkOffPodcast, Instagram, the Walk Off Podcast, And then, of course, Adam runs the TikTok as well. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Have a great day, and cheers.
Cheers.